Welcome to episode 33 of Masters of the Forge. I'm Adam.
And I'm Snorre.
Hello, Snorre.
Hello.
Poor Jim couldn't be with us. He's not feeling well. But we're going to talk about little wars today. Little bitty wars of the 40k variety.
Like
of which,
like the 13th Black Crusade, right?
That is not a little war. That's a big war.
Oh, I thought it was small.
We're talking about teeny little actions that happen in the galaxy that have big impacts, or little impacts, or medium impacts, or whatever you want. Little story-driven, quick games. There have been a lot of varieties in the past, but that's what this week's episode's about.
Yep.
But first, I think we want to talk about what we've been up to. I'll go first.
Yeah, because you actually have something to talk about, as in something meaty to talk about.
Oh, all the meat. I've got some meat for you. First of all, I finished painting all my dorks, so I currently have the two squads of bloodletters that I painted already, which are fantasy savage orcs. I have 3 blood crushers, which I actually bought the blood crusher models at Adepticon and put boar riders, like savage orc boar riders, on them, and they fit perfectly. Painted those up, and I have 10 boars, which I took some green stuff and I filled in the parts where you're supposed to glue the rider to it. And I made some fur there, and you can barely tell. Fur is kind of easy when you're just doing a little patch job. So I'm using those for flesh hounds, which are pretty cool. I want to get more of those. And I also have a Chaos Lord on a Juggernaut. I think I'm going to be using him as a sergeant, actually, for the Blood Crushers. Eventually, I think I want to do more of a war boss on a pig instead for that, because I think it's not quite impressive enough. He's pretty cool, but he's not quite impressive enough to be considered a Chaos Lord. And I kind of want to do an axe, like a big, nasty, bloody axe for my Chaos Lord. And I also took my my old Dark Angels Scully Land Raider. So basically, this Land Raider from back in the day, I painted it brown, painted a bunch of bleached bone skulls all over it, washed it brown, painted more bleached bone skulls all over it, washed it, then painted more bleached bone skulls all over it. So it's a super Scully Land Raider, and I basically ripped off all the Dark Angels insignia except for the front panels that I got from Cyborg Miniatures. They're like Death Angels. And instead of ripping them off, I have them bleeding from the eyes with the corn blood. And I painted on some corn symbols, and I put blood in the treads, because all the bases of all my dorks are bloody. So did you see that one?
No, sorry. I have barely spent any time at all on Facebook lately. So, things that go on in the 40k scene, I'm kind of out of it. But when you say you painted skulls, did you freehand them, or did you actually paint skulls that were stuck on there?
I painted skulls.
So, physical skulls.
Sorry. I freehanded skulls.
Yeah, that is pretty sick, because all the washing and then painting, and then the washing and the painting, you get a really nice depth to it.
Yeah, that's kind of the key. I may do some more vehicles in the future, but like this one, but that was a lot of work, and I did a lot of it while I was like playing D&D. I would just sit there and paint the skulls on kind of mindlessly while other people were taking their turn. So it's not like something I'd kind of want to just sit here and do, because it's a lot of work. But it was fun. So I have 1,000 points of Khorne Demonkin. I picked up the Codex also, and I played a couple of games. And interestingly, I've played 2 games against my buddy Gene, who hasn't played in a really long time. He just picked up the new Chaos Space Marines, he just picked up the new Space Marine book. He's got a kid, so he doesn't get to play a lot. So he came up to the store one day, and then I went to his house this weekend, and I had a few games. I won the first game, he won the second game. I learned that when the Boers assault, they do very well. When they get assaulted, they don't do very well. So, especially, he loves using Death Company, and those guys put out a lot of attacks. Those guys are no joke. So I had a couple pretty fun games with the Demonkin. It's pretty cool because it's another assault army, which is a lot of fun, but it's got some cool mobility and durability and kind of stick-to-itiveness that the orcs don't have, sort of. Like, we don't have beasts. We have bikes, but we don't really have beasts, and they're all fearless, so it kind of scratches an itch of me not wanting to deal with leadership. It's really nice not to have to worry about that, so really pleased with that army, and I all the models I own are done with that right now, so I think I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not sure where else to go. Well, I have some models for my buddy Kevin who I have to paint. Well, I have to fix a few things on them. That's probably an afternoon job. But after that, I'm not sure where I'm going to go. What do you think, Snorri? I got a bunch of orc projects. I have my Diggas. I have my Space Marines repaint. I have the looted Thunderhawk, and I have Sisters of Battle. Wondering if I should maybe do a quick orc project, like finish up my my mech guns that I bought when the Orc Codex came out.
That would be a good one. I was thinking crashed, not the crashed Thunderhawk, but the looted Thunderhawk is a very good contender for your attention right now. But
it is.
Orcs, well, the looted Thunderhawk is definitely an orc project, so yeah.
But it's a project in and of itself.
That is true.
For sure. So I think, and I had some of the guys who bought it for me ask me about it, so I'm wondering if I kind of owe it to them to go ahead and finish it up. Yeah. So what I think I'll do is I'll do these mech guns. I bloody well paid for them. I better build them and paint them and get them going. So I'll do these mech guns and the artillery crew that go with them. Then I'll pull out the Thunderhawk and start working on it. I think I'm going to actually plan this one, though. I'm going to get out some paper and just start really think about, maybe even do some drawings based on what I want to do. Someone suggested the front of it, how the door is missing. I may actually cut a mouth out of the front with teeth and sort of give it a new jaw.
I like that.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool. So, and the paint is, I think I've decided that the paint is going to be Ultramarines, but with the Blood Ravens repainting over it, but then the Orcs stole it after the Blood Ravens stole it. So it'll be some grots on it, repainting it red while it flies or something.
Well, the whole Blood Ravens stealing thing,
so much.
They don't steal, they just borrow without asking.
They borrow.
I think they've gotten something of an undeserved bad reputation there, but I'm not going to get into the politics of that thing.
Okay, no problem, buddy.
So, is that it?
No, it's not it. Duh. So, speaking of Little Wars, we just yesterday we finished our Combat Patrol tournament. We had a Combat Patrol tournament yesterday. We had a turnout of 12 people at Flipside Games in upstate New York. We had a wonderful time. Lots of people came. Had some folks come from a bit of distance away as well. Thanks to them for showing up. Thanks to everybody for showing up. We had a wonderful... 12 is a pretty good turnout for a non-standard 40K tournament, I think. And we didn't use, like I said, we didn't use the regular Adepticon style. We had we used my usual missions. We just like kind of scrunched up the objective distance. My buddy John did the management of the tournament, like during the tournament, so that I could play. I recused myself from prizes. I actually would have gotten second overall had I stuck in there, but I thought it would be a little weird for me to get prize support if I were playing, or if I were like managing most of it, so that would have been weird. So, but I had a really fun time. I played against Eldar, which I lost. I played against Sisters of Battle. I played against Dark Angels, which are pretty good right now. Wow, those Ravenwing, man, they're pretty sweet. But I brought the list I brought was 20 Necron Warriors. In 400 points, I brought 20 Necron Warriors in one unit with Cryptek with the Veil of Darkness and one Canoptic Spider just kind of sitting in the backfield. And when I use that Veil of Darkness and drop next to something with 40 Gauss Flayers and the Cryptek's Staff of Light, dude, it's pretty nasty. Whatever it is dies. But at the same time, I'm facing Eldar and stuff, and they're just so fast. And when I get assaulted by almost anything, they die. So, it was a pretty fun tournament. The next tournament we'll talk about in the outro. The other interesting thing I've been doing is planning a geekend with my friends. Sometime in August 8th, which is coming up pretty soon. We rented a cabin up by Gore Mountain in the Adirondack. No, is it in Gore Mountain? No, we switched it. It's down in the Catskills now. But we rented a cabin down in the Catskills, and we are going to be having a full weekend of no significant others and only games and alcoholic beverages and relaxing. It is going to be glorious.
Sounds like our dream idea of a vacation. Wait, this sounds like a Adepticon.
Yeah.
Beer, games, and cool people.
Yeah, I'm buying a keg of Brown's Cherry Raz for the weekend, and that is going to be interesting. Other people are bringing other stuff. My buddy Pat's going to buy a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue, and then there's just madness from there on out. It's going to be. We're not going to be role playing, that's for sure, because it's not. I don't think anybody's going to be in any kind of shape for proper role playing. We're going to bring a bunch of our board games and stuff, and that'll be fun. Oh man, we've been playing this one called Kingsburg, which is so much fun. And what else have I been playing? Oh, we've been playing what's it called? Small World. Dude, that game, it's like Risk. Imagine Risk, Snorri, except fun.
I played it.
Oh, you have?
Oh, yeah. I played it with my cousin, and she pretty much annihilated me every single time. But the game is so random in terms of which race you get and all that. So,
there's a lot of choice involved in which...
Yeah.
You know what? When you play... I think 4 players is the sweet spot. If you just have 2 people, it's kind of hard to... It's kind of easy to tell which is the best choice, Yeah,
I think the game is actually one of the most fun ones because what you get so dictates how you need to play, but it's also random, so there's no 2 games that are the same. And even if you lose, you don't feel so bad about it because, okay, maybe you got dealt some bad races or... Yeah, it's like, it doesn't feel like a defeat.
Yeah, it's definitely a new game every time you play it. And yeah, there is a random aspect to it that forces you to come up with strategies right, on the fly. It's a action reaction type game, and like I said, it's definitely a lot like a weird version, like a scaled down version of Risk, except it's fun. So folks definitely need to give it a try. And I love Kingsburg. It's like a combo. It's like Game of Thrones meets Guess Who meets like Stratego. It's really like meets like name any one of millions of resource management games here. It's really cool.
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with Warhammer 40,000, but that's all right.
Yep. So, are you done now?
Yeah, I think that's it. That's pretty much everything. I'm not going to 40K this Monday. I have to go to court because I have a ticket that I have to take care of.
Ooh, you bad man.
Yeah. I actually I went through a red light and hit an old man in his car. I broke an old man's car and my car, and so it was totally my fault. So the cop was really nice. He's like, "Yeah, you just go here and plead not guilty." I'm like, "Okay, thanks."
Okay, I thought that you knew you were guilty, and he pretty much realized that you probably were, and he's still saying you should say not guilty?
Oh, that's how it works in the U.S. So here's the thing. Moving violations, the money goes to... I think with moving violations... Okay, so moving violations are X money, right? And I think a larger... don't quote me on this, I think a larger percentage goes to the state. But if you plead down... If you plead guilty and don't go to court, they'll give you... They chalk it down to a non-moving violation, which I think almost all the money goes to the municipality rather than the state. And if it's not, sometimes the non-moving violation is more money than the moving violation. It's a bigger fine. So they get more money and you don't get points on your license. That's
okay.
How that works.
So this is pretty much like... if you'll just wet my beak, I'll make this go away.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a secret thing. It's definitely everyone does it.
Yeah, it seems like the justice system is so broken when pleading guilty or not guilty just means that money goes one way or the other. Potentially more money goes one way or the other. It's like that is just weird.
Oh, well, in the U.S., a lot of people hate paying taxes, right? So instead of raising taxes, they raise the fines on like minor infractions of the law or regulations, like fines. Yeah. They raise fines so that they can make money, and so it behooves them to fine people for things so that they can fund things like roads and schools. It's really weird.
Yep.
Anyways, this is a topic for our social norms in the 21st century with Adam and Snorri podcast. What have you been up to, Snorri?
40K wise, not so much. I haven't really had time for any games lately, but I picked up my Cryhammer Annihilation Force kit. So... Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I was actually one of those people who were stupid enough to put down money for a piece of paper. A limited edition DLC, here's a pay-to-win thing, which is totally not my style. I just needed some drop pods and some Assault Marines, and cool. Oh, yeah. Well, the Devastators looks awesome, so, I was going to spend the money anyways.
You get the new Assault Marines and you get the new Devastators, both of which are awesome kits. I did pick up a squad of this Assault Marines because I know I want to add at least one to my Star Eagles when I get the opportunity. I also picked up some 32 mils for my Star Eagles. So we'll see when that project... that ain't going to happen anytime soon. But I don't blame you, dude. Those kits are awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And while I was at Games Workshop, I also picked up 3 of the 4 codexes I was missing. That was the Cult Mechanicus, the Craft World, and what was the last one? Oh yeah, Imperial Knights. Finally, they made an Imperial Knights Codex worth buying.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's a lot of cool stuff in there.
Yeah,
Like,
and you were talking about the Dark Angels being kind of hard, and well, might be that is the reason why they didn't have one copy of that book at Games Workshop anymore.
yeah, they're quite a bit better, and they're so popular. People love the Dark Angels, and I think the new Codex really reflects their fluff. Granted, I did Deep Strike next to the guy and blow away his unit, but a lot of people were having trouble because they get to, the Raven Wing gets to re-roll their saves and stuff. It's really nice.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get that book some other way, but for now, it's going to be a hole in my shelf.
Yeah, and hey, I don't blame you for buying. I really like the Skyhammer Annihilation Force because it's gonna force people to play more fluffy. Because first of all, that's pretty much how Space Marines deploy, anyways.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's gonna force people to buy screens for their Alpha Strike units. So, you're gonna see a lot more Tau players with Kroot in front of their broadsides, and so they have to buy more Kroot with their points, which means they have less of the things that make the game not fun for you, which is cool.
It's actually I like that theory. It's a nice one.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. At least I hope that's the case. I hope that's the case because that'll make things a little bit more fun from a competitive standpoint when people build more fluffy lists.
Yep. We love fluffy lists.
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So, I guess that the one thing I can always mention at the end here is, while I was in Oslo picking up this stuff, my girlfriend and I, we took a trip to the Oslo Reptile Park, which is a place where they have a lot of snakes and cockroaches and tarantulas and even a black widow and, a couple of turtles, some small apes, some small monkeys, and I got to handle a ball python.
Oh, cool.
He was crawling all over me. He was so happy. He was using me as a, what do you call them? A jungle gym?
Yep.
So that was pretty cool. So totally recommend if you have the opportunity to do something like this and you're not totally scared of snakes. And that kind of snake is a constrictor type, so it's not poisonous or anything. And they will crawl all over you and explore and just chill out most of the time, at least. So it's fun. It's an interesting experience.
That's awesome, dude. That's fun. Yeah, that does sound like a lot of fun.
It was. So, should we move on to commercial break? And, well, actually not commercial break. It's not commercial. It's just an ad.
Yes.
That we don't make money on.
No, yeah. Let's hear some words from Wendy, and we'll be back to talk about Little Wars.
Dallas-Fort Worth Nerd Night is a community organization that throws tabletop gaming parties for charity. We believe tabletop gamers are uniquely qualified to build better local communities because of the types of relationships built while gaming. If you'd like to learn more about how you can play games and help people with DFW Nerd Night, check out www.dfwnn.org. That's www.dfwnn.org. Thanks.
We're going to start off by talking about why someone would want to play little games of 40K. I think for a lot of us this is obvious, but I don't think we can talk about the subject without thinking of the imperative, right? So, I mean, some folks may not understand why someone would want to play smaller games when they could just as well spend all afternoon playing one big game. And I think one of the main reasons is time. A big game does take pretty much all day if you're playing narratively, or if you're just playing beer and pretzels. You're gonna spend 3 hours on a game. With a smaller game, you can get together for an hour and knock something out and have a great time.
Yeah. one of the things that we're doing at the club right now, well, technically Charlie and me, is to try to play some smaller games and see if we can use the outcome to flesh out some kind of backstory for his Corn Demonkin army.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, and one of the great things is you can really get down to the fine detail of your narrative, right? So every character matters, every model matters when you're playing a smaller game. So you might even go so far as to name each model or whatever, what have you, depending on the army, of course. Like for a narrative, the details can be very specific. Every roll matters, every movement matters. Every piece of terrain can matter, and you're not constrained by time as far as getting to the nitty-gritty of the details, right? You don't have to worry about speeding the game up just for the purposes of finishing it, because you have all the time in the world to finish your little 200, 300, 400 point game.
Yeah, and also because it feels that you can stretch out a squad much more in these small games. It really feels like you're really zooming in on the battlefield, and you get much more in touch with each soldier.
That's right. And not only that, like, even as far as the narrative goes, and time, kind of like at the same time, you could, instead of looking at it from the perspective of, oh, we have an hour, let's finish a game, you can look at it from the perspective of, we have 3 hours, let's finish 3 games. Let's get a continuation happening all at once. And this is what happened with my recent narrative session with Jason, who's editing this episode as we speak. Thank you, Jason. The most recent segment of the raid on Pikeshi 4 was done as 3 consecutive Combat Patrol team games. And we played them in order and adjusted the narrative after each game. And came up with objectives and stuff for each consecutive game based on the results of the previous game. So that's hard to do when you go from week to week. Like, we play a game one week and then, okay, we have to remember what happened in the last game or whatever. You can actually play consecutive games and develop a continuing narrative all in one session, which is really cool. Like, we came up with some cool ideas. If anybody actually listened to the last narrative battle report, a lot of the ideas in that battle report, a lot of the narrative outcome of that battle report was the result of playing the game, not pre-written into the story. So it's really valuable to play these little games and like Snorri said, zoom in on the action.
Of course, playing small games like this also means that it's easier to do painted miniatures on the table, because you don't have to paint an army. You just have to paint 10, 15 models, maybe 30 models if you have low-cost units like orcs or guardsmen. But still, it's not that massive deal of having to paint 600 models to field your entire Green-Wa.
Yeah, that's right. And I was talking to Robert. Robert came up from he's from Westchester, New York. He came up to play Combat Patrol with us yesterday, and he's trying to get together a ad mixture that he's kind of been talking about called Inquisimunda. So it's basically like a smaller scale Inquisitor themed, like very character centric miniatures game. And he was talking about, the hobby aspect where you can get right down to every little detail on these models, and every little detail matters. Like he has a bunch of chaos cultists. They all have like tattoos and and deformities and scars and all their every piece of equipment matters. Every detail on these characters matters. And at the end of the day, every troop, every infantry model, you could consider it to be a character, if you will, because it has character and it has a reason for being there. So you can actually really just develop each model individually. Another point I wanted to make was it lets you don't have to commit. If you have a special model that you've always wanted to paint, or a special army you've always wanted to paint, but you don't want to make that big commitment, you could make a kill team squad, or a combat patrol squad, or a Killzone squad, and that you've scratched that itch. I'm personally sick and tired of painting. I don't really want to paint very many more of my Star Eagles, but I kind of want to paint some Space Marines that aren't Star Eagles, but I don't want to commit to a whole chapter. So maybe I'll come up with a Killzone team of different chapters that I've always wanted to paint. That
is true. Deathwatch is full of them.
Right? Yeah. Just do Deathwatch. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm getting at.
So over the years, Games Workshop has provided us with a couple of game systems that let you do these kind of games. You have Inquisitor, which we already mentioned, also Necromunda, and you also have Mordheim, which is the fantasy version of Necromunda.
Yeah.
And in the book Battle Missions, which is now kind of outdated, they also had a special mission called Kill Team, which was 200 points of, cherry pick whatever you want. Unfortunately, my experience with that is not great, because, 200 points of Terminators versus 200 points of Tau Fire Warriors, that's not going to be a fun fight.
Skirmish-based gaming goes way back to Gary Gygax's Chainmail, which became Dungeons & Dragons, which is at its heart a role-playing game. And I think that speaks to what we're looking for from a skirmish-level game like this. We're not looking for replicating large battles. We're looking to tell the stories of these individual characters, right? I mean, Necromunda was like that. Every model mattered. Every model had every model actually carried on to the next game if it survived, right? And Kill Team was interesting in that you had to take a unit. You had to buy models by the unit, which I guess fits the fluff pretty well, but it wasn't very interesting, right, for every player. And it didn't make sense for some armies. And is Tactical Strike the same way, Snorri?
Now I'm actually a little bit unsure. Yes, I did actually play it a couple of weeks ago, but no, the finer details, I think you buy them as squad. But please don't quote me on it. I don't have the book at the moment. Right. It seems like a Tactical Strike is Kill Team done slightly better, because there's actually more stuff that you can do with your army. You can take, for example, Tank Hunter rules, and you can give that to your hero. And also, it doesn't feel so broken, because of, it's power armor against power armor. It's not all the Xenos races. It's only Horus Heresy.
Right. That makes balancing a whole lot easier, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
But you had fun.
Oh yeah, it was very fun. So even though I think I lost both games, it was still fun. Yeah, I did lose in both games because I stuck with being fluffy, and that was not a good choice. I played Death Guard and I chose the wrong kind of hero trait. But it also adds overtime gaming aspect to it, because Tactical Strike has resources. So winning or holding objectives gives you resource points, and these resource points are then spent to maintain or upgrade your armor. Not to make it better, but for example, upgrading your armor means that you don't move through difficult terrain whenever you move. Because even open terrain is difficult terrain with a basic armor.
Right.
You have to spend points leveling it up one level to actually have it working at full capacity again. Same thing with your bolters. If you spend points on your bolters to maintain them, any 6 on to hit means that you're actually rolling snapshots the next turn because something went wrong or you're low on ammo, so you have to conserve your ammo.
Mm-hmm.
And if you upgrade it, then you can fire away. But if you don't have the points to upgrade it, you actually go down a level, and then suddenly it's a 5 and a 6, and you're snapshotting.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it means that you're looking at squads of maybe a single legion or just a couple of legions just banding together, trying to survive on a minimal amount of resources. It felt really narrative to me. Mm-hmm. It just felt like, yeah, you're down there on Istvan, everything's gone to hell, and you're just trying to survive by any means necessary.
Yeah, it seems like the Overlords are very, very deep into the Tactical Strike, and it sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like Tactical Strike sounds like a great way to get into 30K. Like, I could see myself building a squad, like a squad and a half. What is it, 200 points or 250 points?
500, I think.
Oh, it's 500. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, it's more like Combat Patrol in that instance, where it's...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool, yeah. I could see myself buying and building a Tactical Strike list, just as a list, and building it and painting it and having fun with it as an entry-level thing. I think it's hard for people to get into 30K. It really is. Even for people who play 40K and are big-time hobbyists, it's still a big, huge investment. And this is a great way to get into it. And I may talk to some of the guys over at the club, see if some of them want to do that with me, because it would be nice to be able to bring a Tactical Strike list to England with me if I go in April. If is very quickly becoming when. It's like I am like 95% sure I'm going.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Just to make a minor clarification here, when I say 500 points, I think it was you have 150 points that you're only using on your hero. That is your sergeant character.
Uh-huh.
And that's all the point, or sergeant characters, maybe. I don't remember that one exactly. But the remaining 350 points or so is what you have as a pool to spend on the rest of the guys. So you don't really have 500 points to spend exactly the way you want to. You actually have some limitations.
Okay.
And that, in my case, I think I had a couple of points extra on my hero. It's just lost. I can't use them on the regular guys. It's only there for the hero.
That's pretty interesting, though. That's cool. So I guess that leads us to Killzone.
Yes.
So we've talked about Killzone for, ever since the beginning, right? Our first On Your Tabletop packet had a Killzone mission in it, right? Snorri, have you played much Killzone?
No, I played it a couple of times at Jim's place, and that is Big Jim over in California there. Mm-hmm. Hi, Jim. And that's it. It's probably not too hard to get people to play it, but it's a different kind of game. It feels a little bit different. So I think there's a bit of a threshold there to get people to try it. But I think that once people try it, they actually find the enjoyment of the small game, because it's like 40K, only there's minor changes that make it kind of fun and different.
Yeah, and for a while it was probably the most popular small missions format for 40K, while it was being supported by Jim. And I think there was one other person that was working on it with Jim. I don't know. I'd have to ask him. But anyways, they worked really hard on it, and they did a good job, and people loved it. And there's kind of a cult following for it right now, and people have been looking for a way to play it in the new paradigm of 7th edition, So I messaged Jim about 2 months ago, probably more like 3 months ago at this point. Said, Jim, would you be interested in me taking up? Because I know you're busy with having your dream job and all. Would you be interested in me taking over a curation of Killzone? And he immediately said yes. So I've been working on updating it to 7th edition and trying to get a little more streamlined for 7th edition and for the way we play now, and trying to fit it in with those rules. And I think I've been mostly successful. We're ready for beta testing as we speak. I'm actually editing some of the charts, and I'm going to be releasing the new Killzone beta test packet rules with this episode. And in the next segment, Snorri and I will be discussing the new rules, or actually the rules in general, because I'm sure most of the folks listening don't even know what the rules are. So we're going to describe for you what the differences are between Killzone and regular 40K, and we're going to talk about how to build lists and have missions with it. Does that sound like fun, Snorri?
That sounds tedious.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll love it.
Yep. It's going to be great radio where we point at, and then you look at this page, and then you read this text, and then you realize that you're actually playing 40K, and we're just wasting your time, and, read the rules. Actually, no. We're going to do our best to make this a fun and engaging conversation.
Yes.
And Wendy, take it away.
All right.
Interested in the offbeat world of 40K? Is your bits box full of 20-year-old space elves? Have you ever searched for something out of production 40K on eBay? Well, hold on to your zotes and head over to Corsair Radio. It covers the full scope of the hobby, homebrew rules, fluff, campaigns, oddball models, and more. From Terra to the Eye of Terror, visit us at corsairradio.blogspot.com. That's corsairradio.blogspot.com.
So we're going to be talking about the rules for Killzone, which hopefully is a more detailed, kind of story-driven version of Kill Team. Kill Team is very good for like Space Marines, but it really leaves a lot to be desired for a lot of the Xenos races. Much like Kill Team, each model is an individual. It's an army of one. So that means they shoot individually, assault individually, and make all their checks individually, including things like leadership. When you're talking about unit effects in Killzone, it's basically any models within 6 inches of that model are affected. So, for example, say, an apothecary. Say you have an apothecary model. Well, every friendly model within 6 inches of the apothecary is going to feel no pain. But that also goes for enemy models affecting you. So let's say they have some kind of weird special ability that makes you make a leadership check or run away. And it's usually for the unit. Instead, they choose a model, and every model within 6 inches of that model is affected by that ability. Each model gets to make their, checks, whether it be like a leadership check or a toughness check or whatever. Each individual model gets to resist negative effects. And I think that's a lot of fun. It really lets you know, who's been affected, who hasn't been affected, and as you progress through, an ongoing campaign, individual models may actually develop a unwanted predilection for failing certain things,
Or in case of psychic abilities being affected by psychic abilities, maybe they are warp touched, and the other guys in the team maybe won't trust them too much because, this guy kind of acts all squirrely when there's psychers around.
Yep. Yeah, and that's that's one of the great things about these little games. Individual models start developing a character of their own, even though just by chance, right? Which is fantastic.
Yep.
Like this guy always ends up dying first. I don't know what his problem is.
Yep.
So when it comes to individual models like this, though, sometimes models can be targeted because they're the leader or whatever. There needs to be a slightly bigger level of survivability for your models, because it wouldn't be quite as fun if you were just removing a ton of models in a turn, especially in the first turn. So that's why in Killzone you're allowed to take every save you have. So, for example, let's say for sake of argument, you have a Necron warrior who, for whatever reason, is sitting in cover, for some reason has a 5+ invuln save and feel no pain. So that Necron warrior would get his cover save, his armor save, his feel no pain, and his reanimation protocol. He would get all 4 of those rolls. But you usually do it in order of best save. That way you're saving time. So like a Terminator in cover, you'd take the 2+ armor save first, just because it's less rolling. It's, just simpler that way. What do you think of that, Snorri? I think it really adds time to the game, but when you're talking about 250 points worth of guys, it's not a big deal, I don't think.
No, and it also just means that when you're in cover, you should have that cover count for something, even if your armor is better. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a more, well, I hate to use the word realistic, but it's a more plausible way of resolving cover or different kinds of saves,
It's more cinematic. Yeah, I like it. So you can still use psychic powers in Killzone, but you can actually pick your powers, but they're actually a part of your list. So the normal rules are totally ignored. You're building a character here. So your character always knows these psychic powers that they've chosen. Which I think, even though there are no warlord traits in Killzone, but there are other abilities. And I think psychic powers are one of those things where your character would know a specific power, right? And I don't think, nowhere in the books have I seen that psychic powers are just totally random based on what battle a psyker is fighting. No. They just know how to do certain things, right?
And that is one of the things that kind of annoy me, but I usually get around it because I usually feel Necrosius and Typhus, or one or the other, and they have set powers, which is sort of proof, I guess, that named characters in different books actually have specific powers that these powers they always have. So I think that's okay. Yeah.
Also for Brotherhood of Psychers, one of the big, at least previously, I haven't looked at the recent Kill Team rules, but one of the previous Kill Team's rule sets, pink horrors were very broken because each pink horror got to shoot its psychic power because it was considered an individual unit. So, units with Brotherhood of Psychers, models with Brotherhood of Psychers share our Brotherhood of Psychers with every other model in your Kill Team army. So if you have 3 different models, all from different types of units, if they have the Brotherhood of Psychers rule, they are one Brotherhood of Psychers instead of each counting as an individual Psyker. So I think that was definitely warranted, because otherwise that is way too busted face. That is way too powerful.
Yeah, because it's not a brotherhood if it's a brotherhood of one.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And usually those models are super cheap, so it was just a way too cheap a way of getting really powerful psychic powers. Again, briefly touching on terrain, you want to have a lot of terrain. The whole point of Killzone is small actions, small groups of people whose little actions have a big impact, and rarely do missions like that occur on a wide open grassy plain.
So let's get into the game then. And where better to start than with the game turn sequence. The game turn sequence is pretty much exactly as 40k, but with some minor changes, because there's a couple of extra things that happens in some of the phases. And we can begin with the movement phase, because it's the first one, and one of the first changes we meet is that instead of rolling for moving through difficult terrain, models use something called hindered movement through difficult terrain.
So yeah, hindered movement is half your movement rounded up plus 1. So a regular infantry model would be 6, halved is 3, plus 1 is 4. And you'd put that on your sheet next to your character. This is to kind of save time, and also it creates a level of predictability for during your game. So you can kind of rely on your individual models to do what they need to do. So you'll see hindered movement a lot in this rule set, used for a lot of things, and we'll refer to it as we go.
Can I just add that hindered movement also saves you time, because you don't have to roll for random movement all the time.
Yeah, which there's going to be a lot of, because we have a lot of terrain in this game and a lot of other things that rely on that kind of rolling. So it really helps out, and you don't end up with unfortunate events happening to your characters that aren't very narrative. So you'll see as we go.
There's another change also in the movement phase, and that is running, because you don't roll to run during the shooting phase. Instead, you can add the hindered movement at distance to your movement during the movement phase.
Right. So an infantry model running through cover is going to move like 8 inches, right? So hindered movement is 4 inches, so you move through cover 4 inches, and then you run 4 inches for a total of 8 inches. This isn't done in the shooting phase, like Snorri said. You just do it all at once. Another interesting thing, though, is opportunity fire. This is a new rule for Killzone, and it helps protect armies that are brave enough to stand out in the open. Right? Because all too often people hide their models like a bunch of cowards and then jump out and try to hurt you. Well, opportunity fire helps mitigate that quite a bit.
Yep, because instead of just standing there and being shot at, if you pop up, your opponent is going to say, "Oh, you popped up. That means I can shoot you," which is kind of cool.
Yep, and I really like this rule. This rule, it's a little too detailed for 40K, right? This rule is not. It'd be really kind of a pain in the neck to keep track of. But for little games, this is one of those special rules that, like, one of the reasons we have the hindered movement is to save time for more narrative fun things that you do during the game, like opportunity fire, which, like, I won't go into too much of the mechanics, but you basically put a token down, say, I'm going into opportunity fire, and that token kind of marks your 180-degree firing arc because you're kind of scanning a specific direction. And that adds another level of kind of tactics to it, because your opponent can say, okay, I'm going to try to jump behind his arc, or you have to actually decide which arc you want to cover, which enemies you think are the most dangerous. It's a really neat ability. Now, outside of 24 inches, if someone's far away, you have a -2 to your ballistic skill when firing at them. This is because you can't scan, it's harder to scan out that far and cover that much ground.
Yeah, and even outside of 12 inches, you have a -1 to your ballistic skill.
Mm-hmm, yep. I guess we can move on to the shooting phase. There really isn't that much different about the shooting phase. Again, another new rule is the kill zone. You want to talk about the kill zone, Snark?
Yep. Anytime a weapon with more than one shot fires, the shooting player may announce that they will be using the kill zone rule. And what kill zone actually means is that you announce that you're shooting at one target. Then you roll to hit, and then the first shot has to go on the announced target. And the next couple of shots can then be resolved against other targets within 3 inches of the first. So it means that you're basically just spraying and hoping that you will hit more than what you originally aimed for.
Yep. This helps models with more than one shot, like Space Marines with assault weapons or whatever. It lets them shoot at more than one target if they have multiple shots. But when you do implement a kill zone, if you don't kill the first model, it doesn't matter. You implemented a kill zone, so your next shot does have to go against something else. So that's a kill zone, and I think that's really important. I think Kill Team has a similar rule, I think, where you just get to pick whatever targets you want for your shots. This is slightly different. You can't just spread your shots across the battlefield. They have to all be within 3 inches of each other, or 3 inches of the original target.
Yeah, and I think that this implementation is also a little bit better because you're forcing a spread. Instead of cherry-picking one guy at one end and one guy at the other end, you're actually forcing yourself to move around. You can't shoot your original target if you still have shots available to place on other targets. You can't re-shoot one target unless you have nothing else that hasn't already been shot once.
Yeah, you're committing to it. And a lot of it's like your arm, like I would say, like if you're holding a bolter and you're sweeping, your arm, you're not going to be like, oh, I didn't kill that guy, I'm going to swing back and kill him instead. Like, no, you're sweeping across multiple targets, and you're just committed to that, right? Playing on this is auto fire. So a model with 3 or more shots on any ranged attack in the shooting phase can initiate an auto fire attack. So you place a template which is completely within range of the firing weapon. So if you have, for some reason, a 3-shot 12-inch weapon, the entire template has to be completely within 12 inches of your shooting model. And when you shoot it, it has to be pointing at you. If you look up the rules, you get a better idea of... it's not like a torrent template. It actually has to be... The short end has to be pointing towards you, and the big end has to be, over the enemy models. And you get an extra shot for each enemy model under the template, but they're shot at a -1 ballistic skill. So, for example, say you have 5 Space Marines all clumped up perfectly for your teardrop, you'll get 5 extra shots to your big shoot-up, but only if you didn't move that turn. And then you simply resolve it exactly like a kill zone that's instead of 3 inches from the initial target, it's on anything that was under the template.
I love that one. It's just a world of hurt.
Yeah, you're just holding your finger down on the trigger and just going to town.
Yep.
Another different thing is Lookout Sirs. With Lookout Sirs, we've done something that Lookout Sirs didn't exist, obviously, in the previous rules of Kills, because they didn't exist in the regular rules. So I thought about it, and I'm like, well, with this individual model situation, it would make sense for the actual model to knock the character out of the way and actually physically take the wound for him. So instead of just making a roll, instead any model within 6 inches of a character can attempt to look out Sir for them, and you actually swap places with the model. So like if you have a sergeant out front and he takes a hit, if you have just a regular Space Marine within 6 inches, he rolls a 4+, and you switch their places and you resolve the hits exactly as if he were there. And I thought that was a super fun way to do it, and it makes total sense.
Yeah, if I want to make one suggestion here, I would say that if you move the regular Space Marine 6 inches towards the Sergeant, then the Sergeant is moved half that distance in the same direction, as is pushed away, not pulled back.
Yeah, that might be a better way to do it. Again, these are definitely beta test rules, so everybody should feel free to comment on the rules as they play them, for sure. There's not much different about the assault phase, except that, remember, they're all individual models, and individual models can't assault multiple models. One model assaults another model. One model assaults another model. One model can't assault two models. Two models can assault one model, but one model can only assault one other model. And there's no challenges, right? Because you're just fighting one-on-one anyways.
Yes.
So any rules that you have in your army that give you benefits for, like, winning a challenge, they still trigger as long as it was your character who assaulted their character and you beat them. I mean, it's as simple as that. That's technically a challenge. By you assaulting their character, you have initiated a challenge by default. So anything that triggers off that, you actually get the special abilities of it.
And there's one more thing that is also new in this kind of assault. Your model can only delegate attacks to models it's actually in base contact with. If it's not in base contact, then sorry, your arm is not long enough.
Yeah, right. There's one quick thing about assaults, and that is counter assault. Counter assault allows any nearby models to kind of react to an enemy assault. So if you have, say, your sergeant's out front leading like a boss, right? And you have two enemy models assault into him, and you're really concerned about him getting myrtleized. Well, say you have a friendly model within 3 inches of your sergeant. They're allowed to take a leadership test. And if they're successful, they're allowed to immediately move into base contact with the enemy that assaulted that ally. They obviously don't get the +1 attack, but they unless they have counterattack, of course. But they still get to fight, which I think is a really cool rule. It kind of reflects the usual unit-based piling in that you have in 40K.
So that pretty much covers the minor differences between a regular 40K and a Killzone game. So we're going to move on to how to assemble your team. And that's where the fun really begins, because yes, you're playing a 250-point game, but there are some limitations. Mm-hmm. There's actually quite a few limitations. So, who's the team leader? That's up to you. You choose which model should be the team leader, and, well, doing the leader with the highest leadership skill is probably a good idea. But it's up to you. Also, the team leader gets 1 extra wound because, well, he is the leader, so he is slightly more valuable and should have a bit more survivability.
Yeah, that combined with maybe an invuln save he might have, or feel no pain, or something like that, is probably a good idea, right? And that way he'll have a couple wounds, or she will have a couple wounds, and they'll have the invulnerable save and maybe some feel no pain. If they already have 2 wounds, like a orc knob, they get +1 attack instead, so they get a little bit more killy instead, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and they can also, as we've already mentioned, not have any warlord traits. They just don't exist in Killzone. Right. And you cannot have a vehicle as a team leader.
No, and you know, it makes sense. Like, sometimes warlord traits, when you get down to like the low points, warlord traits can tend to get a little powerful, especially the individual ones. So after that, you start building up your team, right? You can buy pretty much anything you want from like HQ Elite troops, and what you do is you actually use the individual model upgrade version of the like points value. So say you have Space Marines. A Space Marine is plus 13 points per body. So when you buy a Space Marine, he costs 13 points. But of course there are restrictions to this. You can only have up to 2 squad leaders. And when you do that, you have to buy 2 other models from the same unit for each squad leader that you purchase. So say you want a veteran assault sergeant. Well, that means you have to buy at least 2 other assault marines to go with them. Only up to 0 to 2 people with 2+ armor save, 0 to 2 people with a 3+ invulnerable save, 0 to 2 people with more than 2 wounds, 0 to 3 jump infantry, 0 to 3 bike, jet bike, and or cavalry or beasts. And they stack. So a Thunderhammer Storm Shield Terminator fills like a 2+ armor save slot and a 3+ invulnerable save slot. So if you have 2 of those, you can't take any more than that.
And that, of course, kills your, at least the jump infantry version of your assault marines. Because if you, in your example, you said 2 veteran assault sergeants, one of those veteran sergeants would have to take 2 other assault marines. Those 3 could take jump packs, but that means the other 3 that you have to take could not do that, because that would violate the 0 to 3 jump infantry.
Jump infantry. That's correct. They'd have to walk.
Yep. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And also to further some restrictions to help, support a little bit of fairness. There are even more restrictions, and these are as follows. No model may exceed 80 points, including upgrades, which automatically excludes named characters, pretty much. You have to have a cost to every single model on the table. Free models are not allowed in any form. So whether army creation gives you something extra for free or, summoning demons, can't do that. Unless, of course, there is a specific scenario that calls for this. Models listed as unique in their unit composition may not be used. No model may have more than 3 wounds in Killzone unless it's a swarm or a troop. So, I guess that you could always say that if you have a unit with 4 wounds, you would just have 3 wounds on that guy, so he would just automatically lose a wound, but then again, that would be wasted points, and you probably wouldn't have the points to do that within the 80-point limit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the Combat Patrol, they let you take models more than 2 wounds, but they get bumped down to 2. But for Killzone, I think we're looking for smaller units anyways, so we don't do that. You can in your games if you want, though. If you want to take a Demon Prince, be my guest, but he only has 2 wounds.
3?
Well, he will only have... no model may have more than 3... Oh, okay, sorry, 3. Yeah, he'll only have 3 wounds. Yeah, sorry.
Yep. And let's see. No model may have a base toughness greater than 5. So that's also a problem for Demon Princes.
Mm-hmm.
And vehicles are not allowed with the exception of a single walker per game, and only if it has a combined armor rating of 33 or less. That is, if you add the front, the side, and the rear armor values, and it's still 33 or less. So that means rhinos are okay. I think you can barely squeeze a devilfish in there, but land raiders, not happening.
Mm-hmm. Nope, not going to happen. It's basically so you can put a rhino in. Or you can have 1 walker, though, so if you want to do like a dreadnought, that's totally fine.
Yep. There's more restrictions when it comes to weapons. So
we don't have to enumerate all of those, but basically it's like melt-a-guns, you can only take a certain number. Heavy weapons, you can only take a certain number. And it boils them all down very specifically. So if you were worried about somebody taking like 8 tactical marines with melt-a-guns, you just can't do that. However, we want to encourage people to break the rules when it comes to a theme.
Because themes actually give you some, I guess, sort of a get-out-of-jail-free card. If you want to field an entire Terminator force, then you're welcome to do that, but you're only allowed to take Terminators.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So all of the themes, whether it's Armored Might for 2+ armor saves, Death from Above for jump infantry, Behemoths for models with more than 3 wounds, with up to 3 wounds, Swift as the Wind for units that move fast, all of the models in your army must have that trait, which means you're going to be spending a lot of points for each model. So you're going to have a very low model count, which is exactly the kind of limiting factor of it. Because if you only have 4 or 5 models on the field, that's going to be very easy for someone to kill, even though they are tough.
Yep. It's going to be easier to corral you into losing the game.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I have added here, and it's the main thing, that there used to be a Codex for Killzone, and I think that's one of the reasons why it was so hard to keep up with over time. Is every time a Codex changed, someone had to go in and fix the Codex, like the Killzone Codex for an army. We've just explained how to any Killzone army from any Codex. These have all been general rules of how to build an army from any Codex. Obviously, there's a lot of flavor in a lot of these codexes that, to be honest, it would be sad if we didn't mention. But it's also very, very time-consuming to keep up with all the specific stuff in each codex. So, for that reason, we've developed a rule for army-specific themes. Go ahead and look at your formations and detachments. If you have a formation or detachment with a special rule, you can use it as long as the models you pick would be allowed in that detachment or formation. There won't be a lot of them that you can take, but some of them, yes. So, for example, the Necron Mephorit Dynasty cohort allows you to reroll 1s on your reanimation protocol, but you lose objective secured. The core theme, which is the Killzone standard theme, which is basically running it with the restrictions that we have, all of your troops have objectives secured. Well, in this case, you'd get, instead, reanimation protocols of 1 on your troops. So that would be a very mild case. Now, some of these might be a little overpowered for Killzone. That's why I've marked this alpha test only. We are very much an alpha test for this version for this particular part of the rules. We want people to try them out. We want people to try out different ways of working with these army-specific themes. And if you see a problem with any one of them, let us know, and we may start actually just a list of ones that are allowed in Killzone and ones that are not allowed for each army. What do you think, Snorri? Can you think of any that might be really bad for Killzone, or do you think maybe there'll be few and far between that are too powerful?
Personally, I'm really unsure if there are any specific ones that are very bad or very good. Mm-hmm. So right. I'm not going to give any input properly on this, but I would say having a list of these ones are really safe and these ones are not so safe, so people can still include them. Uh-huh. Just it's in the list of these ones you should at least air with the opponent before you start the game, just to see if they agree, because some people find it really fun to play against a really hard formation because it's a good challenge. Others, not so much. Me, probably not so much. I think it's not so much about the whole, the chance of losing is high, but will I have any enjoyment of this game? And that is the most important. And that's always the most important when it comes to 40K.
And especially things like Killzone, where it's really for a narrative fun game, right? So yeah, so it's really just a means to even specialize your team further and give them character. We're not putting this in there to create another way of min-maxing your team. So please help us out with this and let us know what you think. The next section I think we're going to breeze through. We have some special model upgrades for Killzone to make your characters and your regular models all that more interesting and individual and unique. And these are all things that you can model onto your onto your miniatures to show what they have, and you should definitely always do that, right? So, like for example, one of the special issue Wargear upgrades is an Auspex. So I would model that Auspex on the model, and these aren't just for, a lot of these are Imperial sounding, but you can put them on any model, and you just call them whatever thing you want for your army. Because granted, the Imperium does have a lot of nice toys, but most other races also have similar toys. They're just not represented in the 40K rules as of yet, right?
Yeah. You also have the skill upgrades.
Yeah.
You can spend a couple of points to make each model a little bit better in some areas. And that's also something in most cases that you can actually model to. So, say the crack shot for 10 points, put a scope on a gun. Or something, well, I'm not sure what the orcs would put on there. A grot or maybe something else on it to help aiming. Mm-hmm. But it's just stick something on there to represent it as best you can, and just let people know that, yep, this is what I'm doing.
You know what's? I have a couple orcs. I have a whole squad of orcs that have like the rangefinders that you get in the sprue. They have those on all their guns. They're one of my shooter squads, and a few of those guys, their heads are tilted to the right, so their eyes are lined up and squinting into the targeter.
Yeah.
So, I like for those, like all the guys with crack shot, I would say are the guys with their heads turned, and all the guys with targeters, like Targeter is one of the special issue war gears. Those would be the guys with the targeter. So it's just stuff like that. You could even just how you model their limbs and stuff could show who they are or what ability they have. Like lightning reflexes, they get +1 to their jinx save, right? So maybe you model the jet bike like at an angle or something, like they're dodging an attack, and this is my guy with lightning reflexes because he's dodging.
Yeah, gunfighter, a person with 2 bolt pistols.
Yeah, so cool. So like just this kind of stuff, like, and they're at different levels. So some things you can have 4 of, some things you can have unlimited, and some things you can only take once. Just look at it and really outfit your team to make them unique. I guess we can't talk about Killzone without talking about the missions. The missions are very interesting and very cool. Initially, I think their intent was for you to print them out and cut them out as cards and draw them as you go. Clearly, you can roll dice to determine your mission, but it's very interesting to draw, because maybe not for the primary mission, which you share with your opponent. So, like, you'll have a primary mission that you'll share with your opponent, and but you'll also have secondary missions, which are for you and you alone. As there are tertiary missions, which are also for you and you alone.
Okay, so let's cover what these primary missions and secondary and tertiary missions are, because it's quite fun. Okay, so primary mission is as follows. Before you deploy, both players draw a single primary mission card, and this card is played face up. I'm talking about this as cards because, well, it makes more sense than rolling dice. Each player will be working towards their primary objective, and that is something that gives you 6 points each. And that is actually quite a lot of points in Killzone. So if you have a complete mission success, then you get 6 points. You can also actually have a partial mission success and get 3 points. So now comes the secondary and tertiary missions. After you deploy, and before Scout and Infiltrate is done, you draw 1 secondary and 1 tertiary mission card, and these are kept confidential. They will be revealed at the end of the game, when both players are ready to calculate their mission points and victory conditions. You get 3 points for a secondary mission, and a tertiary mission is worth 1 point.
That's right. So that's really cool. I love the secret nature of those missions.
Oh, yeah.
But there's only one primary mission, which you both know, and you're both going for it. But a lot of points are actually tied up in that secondary mission, because if you say you both only score partially on the primary, it's going to be really important for you to say, hey, guess what? 3 points. I fulfilled my secondary mission.
Yep. One of the games that I played against Jim, I actually won the game on the tertiary mission. So
Nice.
It was the 1 point that did the game.
Nice.
Yeah. You also have one rule tied to the secondary and tertiary missions called callous disregard. And that actually means that you flip these cards. You can flip the secondary mission so that your opponent can see it. That means that you get more points for scoring it, but it's going to be a lot harder because he knows what he needs to do to sabotage it.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And a lot of those secondary missions can be easily thwarted, like if something has to survive, or an objective needs to survive. Stuff like that is definitely is definitely easy to thwart. But if you can pull it off, it's definitely worth extra points.
Oh yeah.
Anytime you want, you can actually discard your tertiary mission card and draw a fate card. You never get the mission points for the discarded mission, but you get a special ability based on the fate card that you draw. For example, I'll just give you one example. One of them is called Fickle Fortune. The moment you play this card, one model from your team may borrow a single special rule or skill upgrade from an enemy model on the table. The enemy model may not benefit from this special rule for the active period of this card, which lasts until the start of your next turn. You may reveal this card at any moment in your player turn. So it gives you kind of a random special ability that you can do by forfeiting that 1 point. Neat. There's so many layers to the Killzone missions that
and so much random chance.
There is quite a bit of chance as well. If anybody's interested in the missions, I think it would be a waste of time to just go through every single mission here. But the missions are really fun. Each mission has a specific deployment tied to it for various reasons. Like, a lot of the mission objectives are tied to the actual deployment type that's used. So that's why you don't do a separate roll for each one. There's no deployment deck that you draw from. But they are table quarters, table halves, and the fifth quarter. Table quarters is basically two 12-inch by 12-inch right triangles in each corner of the battlefield, which is 3 feet by 3 feet. And in table halves, it's 6 inches from the board edge. And the fifth quarter is basically 4 quarters and a fifth quarter in the center of the table in a 6-inch radius from the center. And there are some interesting, like, objective movement and stuff that happens with that deployment. These missions really make me look forward to doing some proper Killzone missions for our games, or for our campaign booklets and stuff for our on the tabletop segments, because until now I hadn't really put a lot of thought into how these missions are put together and how they work. I'm really looking forward to this, because I think for some campaigns we could actually come up with like a new list of tertiary mission cards to use based on the specific events that are happening. So, like, for example, say we're reading a book. Each individual primary mission could be set based on what's happening in that chapter, whereas the tertiary and secondary missions could always be the same, like Sergeant so-and-so has to survive the mission or whatever, right? Like, for example, for the last one we did, like Yarrick, one of those secondary missions would always be Yarrick must survive this mission or whatever, right? So I think there's so much opportunity for customization here.
Oh, yeah. By the way, since we're talking about the secondary and tertiary missions, maybe we should just cover what they are.
Sure,
Just to give
you want
people
to
an
give some
idea.
examples?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, go ahead.
A secondary mission could be something like a munitions point, and that is could be a cache of ammunition or some other important stuff that you need to secure and keep the opponent away from. There could be a standard template construct or a radio transmitter or just leading someone away from the battle zone. And when it comes to the tertiary missions, it could be actually my favorite, Just Breathe Rookie, where you actually select a single guy from your team and he just needs to survive. That is surprisingly difficult because he's probably going to die from some random gunfire or some hand grenade being thrown somewhere, or but you can't really just put him in the backfield because then he's wasted, and you cannot waste people in this, or you can't waste resources in this game.
And your opponent might be thinking, "Oh, wait a minute, he's holding back with that model. I wonder if he's got Tertiary Mission 1. I should kill him."
Yeah.
It's great. The secret missions make you think. Like, you have to think, okay, what mission does my opponent have? He sure does seem to be protecting that objective a lot,
Yeah. So the secondary missions are sort of like a typical team mission objective. It's something that you want to hold or achieve. The tertiary missions are more about one individual model and what that model might have to do. In the example I just gave, it's one guy has to survive. It could be that one of your guys has a vendetta against another model in the opponent's army or in the opponent's force. So as long as this character can kill the other character, you get that tertiary mission. But, random things can happen, and you don't get it. And that is just so fun with these tertiary missions.
Yeah, it's really fun. I really recommend folks give it a try. I guess the last thing we have to talk about, we have some alternative rules. I think I guess there's three really main ones. One involves breaking the turn down into phases, and actually both of you playing that phase at the same, consecutively. So you have your movement phase, then your opponent's movement phase. Your shooting phase, then your opponent's shooting phase. Your assault phase, then your opponent's assault phase. So it'd be kind of simultaneous, but not really. It'd be kind of halfway between model by model, alternate activation, and so you go, I go activation. Folks have been trying that out. Killzone groups. This was a core part of the 6th edition Killzone rules. We moved them to the alternative rules. This is where you bring 2 teams or 3 teams, and you play on bigger and bigger tables based on how many groups you have. But then you start getting into really big games, you might as well be playing 40K. Another rule, this one's a new one, it involves picking your team after you know what the mission is. It kind of makes sense to say, I have a mission to fulfill. I'm going to send these guys. And that's a rule that I suggest everybody try out because it actually makes logical sense.
Yeah, most definitely. If you look at any kind of Death Watch involvement in anything, then you have a cultist uprising. You don't send an Tyranid extermination force to take out cultists. You take out you send a completely different team. So knowing the task ahead of you, that is a really good starting place for just selecting what kind of team you want to send.
Mm-hmm. You might want to mix it up by saying, okay, well, this thing is defended by so-and-so. So you might know what army your opponent is playing beforehand also. That's a variation of the variation. So just give it a try. Let us know what you think about that and give us playtesting information. And again, as we close up this segment, I definitely want to reiterate how important it is that everyone let us know what you think of it, both its shining points and the bruises it has. We'd really like to streamline this for a main release before the end of the year. If we could get that going and get some photos, get some drops, drum up some interest for this, I think it'll be really good for the community to have this wonderful rule set resurrected and usable and alive and breathing for everyone's use.
That pretty much covers everything we need to talk about in regards to Killzone, because if we go into more detail, it's going to be really boring to listen to. So, more ads by Wendy. Take it away.
Are you looking for a good hobby blog? Are you in need of a tutorial? Maybe you just want some inspiration to help you get started. Well, look no further than the 40K Hobbyist. Drew is a 40K hobby veteran with more than a decade of GW hobby experience under his belt. Follow one man's journey through the hobby as he dabbles in new experiences such as Forge World Titans, building terrain tables, starting new Space Marine chapters, and much, much more. Stop in for modeling tips, tutorials, bits theory discussions, and just to see some darn cool models. If you have any questions, you can always email him, leave a comment on his blog, or reach him through Facebook. He's always willing to do whatever he can to help expand the hobby and make you feel the best painter that you can be. Stop in and check out the 40K Hobbyist at 40khobbyist.blogspot.com. That's 40khobbyist.blogspot.com, or find him on Facebook.
And with that, I think we are ready to say farewell to our listeners.
Yes, so long, farewell. Thank you for listening to episode 33 of Masters of the Forge, where I still haven't caught up and gotten us an episode ahead. But I think this week I'm gonna cut back on some hobby. I said I was gonna take a week and a half off of hobby. I maybe took 5 days off and started painting my demonkin. So I just can't keep my hands off it now. Now that the big projects are out the door and delivered to the customers, I'm like, you know what? I just want to paint my own stuff. I have so much motivation.
You feel you have so much. Yeah, you have so much energy going on and everything, so you just can't sit still.
Yeah, and I just keep painting.
Yeah.
I should have. We should have another episode in this bank, but like, I just keep wanting to hobby instead.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to feeling that feeling again, because I didn't talk about this in the intro, but I'm stepping down a little bit at work and going from a full-time job to a part-time job, because, well, I was kind of working myself to death, and with more spare time, I think I might have more energy and more time for hobby. So I'm also hoping to have more hobby progress going forward, especially for my renegades.
Yes, that'll be awesome, dude. More time for your hobby, more time for your significant other. I think that's a recipe for a good life. So what will also give everyone a good life is if they give us good iTunes reviews. What do you think?
No.
Yeah, no, really.
Not at all.
It's good karma. It gives you.
Yeah.
I heard that someone in Oklahoma gave us a good iTunes review, and then 2 days later hit the lotto for $10 million. That's just something I heard.
Claims cannot be verified, so please don't trust us too much. But then again, winning $10 million in the lotto, that would be nice,
wouldn't it? It would be so nice.
Yeah. Other places where you can find us would be Facebook. Just look for Masters of the Forge, and you will find us.
Conversations going on there all the time, yeah.
Yep. And there's Twitter, Masters of Forge.
That's right. And then we have, we have our blog, which has all the information you need, including rules for this week's On Your Tabletop, which is the Killzone rules and any other rules that we've come up with in the past. We also would like to ask you to check out the Independent Characters Hobby Progress Challenge, which is still going strong, and you still have a chance to get that bronze, and also get some hobby progress done and win the war on gray plastic. Thanks to Carl and Adon for helping out with that and keeping it running.
And also, start talking about Carl and Adon. Independent Characters episode 127, their final episode, is going to be out soon. Make sure you check that out.
You don't want to miss that. And it'll be time for me to start listening from episode 1. Maybe not episode 1. Maybe I'll listen from episode like 10 or so. It's kind of like our episodes. I'm not sure I want people to listen to episode. Actually, episode 1 was pretty good. Well, because we recorded
our first episodes weren't too bad,
twice, right? So that's probably why it's pretty good.
And also I had some experience also editing podcasts before and some ideas about audio. So we avoided some of the typical noob mistakes that people make on podcasts. But then again, we have done our fair share of stupid mistakes on this podcast, so we're not excused.
I would like to announce the next tournament in the Upstate Honor Guard club, like region group, and that'll be at Dirty Goblin Games on August 22nd, Saturday, August 22nd. That'll be a 1,500 point tournament. Good friends, a bar 2 doors down. That's a good recipe for wonderfulness. So that's Dirty Goblin Games in Queensbury, New York. Other than that...
And winner buys drinks.
Yes, winner buys drinks. But until then...
play the game the way you want to.
Hell yeah!
This podcast is protected by the Creative Commons Attribution, No Derivatives, Non-Commercial, International License. More information about this license and contact information if you have any requests can be found at our blog, mastersoftheforge.com. The music used in this podcast was made by Podod of the duo Sublevel 3. The track is used with his permission.
Painted more bleach bowl skull. Bleh, more bleh. Here's our first edit. Would you like to see it?
Think I'm gonna have to. Oh, by the way, Jason, edit that out.
At least he'll have a big silent part to like cut out. Stopping the recording. Trying to find the window.
The shooting player may announce that they will be
Combat patrol, or sorry, not combat patrol.
Kill team.
Kill team. Thank you. Strategic attack wing. No. No. Here it is. Sorry.
Do you hear the lawnmower going?
Nope.
Okay, good.
Winning. Yeah, I'm just trying to find the stop button again. There it is.